Hello everyone, thanks for joining us today for our visa webinar. So as you can see there, hopefully everyone can see the slides. This presentation today is about making a successful Tier 4 application, and it's all of the essential information that you need to know. And my name is Joanne Bainbridge-Thompson, and I'm part of the international support team at the University of Liverpool. Can everyone hear me okay? Great, just let me know any point through the webinar if you're having trouble hearing anything or if you'd like me to repeat something. So we're going to get started now. If you do have any questions, I'd prefer it if you do wait until the end. I've got a couple of colleagues, Bev and Chris, who are going to be answering your questions, but it makes more sense if you wait to ask your question to the end, because I think there's a good chance that we'll probably answer whatever question you have at some point during the presentation. But if you do feel you want to ask it at the time it comes into your head, then no problem at all. Okay, so let's get started. So Tier 4, what is it? So I'm sure by this point you'll have heard that you need a visa to come to the UK, and it's called a Tier 4 student visa. So it's the student visa category of the UK visa rules. You may have also heard the term points-based system, or often shortened to PBS. So basically you need to score a certain number of points to be able to qualify for the visa. Points are given for holding a confirmation of acceptance for studies, which is referred to as a CAS, and also for having the correct amount of funds available to you, which is often referred to as maintenance by the UKVI. So there's no discretion exercised at all in this process of applying for a visa. It's basically, if you meet the rules, you get the visa, which is a good thing because it's very clear and objective. So what is a CAS? It's an electronic or virtual document, and there's an online database record shared by the university and Home Office, and which actually is called SMS. So basically the university input information about you, where you're from, your qualifications, the course you're going to be doing, and the Home Office have access to that information as part of your visa application. And it confirms that you've been accepted onto a particular course of study. You'll receive a CAS once you've firmly accepted your unconditional offer. So if you've got a conditional offer, you need to meet that first. And also we need to have received evidence of your qualifications. And they are the qualifications that the university has used as a basis for offering you that place on the course. Your CAS statement contains a unique ID number, your CAS number. It contains information about yourself, your qualifications, and your chosen degree course. When you make your visa application, you must include the original certificate as evidence of these qualifications that we've looked at as a basis of offering you that place. So you don't need to include any other certificates, just the ones that have been, just the qualifications that have been looked at in deciding to give you the place on that course. Generally, it's your responsibility to make sure that the information on your CAS statement is correct before you make your visa application. So please do check through everything on your CAS statement. If you do realise that there's something that needs changing on your CAS statement, then you must inform the University of Liverpool before you submit your visa application. An example of this that we've seen in the past is a student may have changed their passport, got a new passport, and therefore their passport number is different. And that is one of the bits of information that's on the CAS statement, so that needs to be updated. So if there is anything like that, or that you realise there might be a mistake on the CAS statement, it's your responsibility to contact the correct people. So for changes to fee payments, you can see the email address there. You must contact feesinc@live.ac.uk. if you make any payments between the point of getting your CAS and applying for your visa. And for changes to personal details, such as the passport example that I just gave. And you must not make your visa application until you are confident that your electronic CAS, so the database that I referred to earlier, you must make sure that that has been updated first before you make your visa application. You won't actually receive a copy of your updated CAS. However, the information will be updated on the electronic CAS. So the Home Office or the UKVI, as part of your visa application, they will check that information on the database. So on to maintenance. You need to show that you have a certain amount of money available to you as part of your visa application. So you need to show that you can cover your tuition fee and your living costs. The living costs, you don't have to show a sort of a general amount that you think you'll need. It is actually a specific amount that's set by the Home Office. So as a new student coming to the UK, so assuming you're all overseas at the moment and you are new students coming to us, then you need to show £7,380. So this amount of living costs, as I mentioned, is in addition to your tuition fee. So you need to know exactly how much your tuition fee is, as stated on your CAS, add it to £7,380, and that's the amount of money you need to show in your bank account. So for self-funding students, that's students who don't have any sort of sponsorship, you'd need to provide your own bank statements. If you haven't got your own bank statement or haven't got your funds in your own bank account, then the only other option is to show bank statements of your parents' bank account. So you can't show that you have the money in anyone else's bank account, for example, an uncle or a brother. It must be either your own or your parents'. The bank statements must be original and must contain the following information. So all of these points: your name or your parents' name if it's their bank account, the account number, the date of the statement, the financial institution's name and logo, so basically the bank's name and logo, and that you've held the required amount of funds for a continuous 28-day period. So that's a very, very important point. So not only do you need to know the exact amount of money you require, but you must have that exact amount for 28 days continuously. So for example, if that amount of money dropped below by just a few, well, in this country, obviously you've got different currency, but if it was just £1 less than the amount you required, then that would mean that you didn't have that amount for the 28-day period, and you'd have to start the 28 days all over again. So you have to be very careful and plan in advance how much you need and make sure it's in a bank account, preferably that you don't touch, so that there's no chance of the money going below the amount that you need. The final date on your bank statement, the list of transactions, must be within 1 month of the date that you make your visa application. So basically, the Home Office don't want you making a visa application with very old bank statements. So they make this rule that the bank statements you use must be less than 1 month old. If you are using bank statements from your parents' bank account, you need to provide some additional documents as well, basically to prove that they are your parents or guardians. The original bank statement, meeting the previous requirements set out on the slide that we've just discussed. You need a signed letter from the account holder, so either your mother or father, confirming their relationship with you and that they consent to using their funds for your studies in the UK. You also need to show an original birth certificate or adoption certificate if they're your adoptive parents, or a court document naming them your legal guardians. So it is actually easier if you've got the funds in your own account, because you just need to show your own bank statements. When you use your parents, you must show those additional documents. But other than that, it's no problem if you need to show it in your parents' bank statements, if you've got the other documents too. So this is an example of a bank statement which does meet all of the requirements we've just discussed. So you can see there the bank's name and logo, your name, the date of the statement, your account number, and you can see there a list of transactions covering a 28-day period. And also, very importantly at the bottom there, you need to check that that final date, the last transaction, is within a month of the date that you're making your visa application. So if you're not a self-funded student, and if you do actually have a financial sponsor, you need to check that the financial sponsor actually does meet the Home Office's definition of a financial sponsor, which you can see the list there. But generally, most students, it's the home government that are sponsoring them, or an international scholarship organisation. but any one of those sponsors does qualify as a financial sponsor within the Home Office's definition. So if you are sponsored, you'll need a letter from your financial sponsor confirming the sponsorship, and that letter must contain all of these bits of information. So it must have your name and the name and contact details of the official financial sponsor. It must have a date on the letter, and it must state the exact length of the sponsorship and the amount of money that the sponsor is giving to you for your studies, or a general statement to say that all course fees and living costs will be covered by the sponsor. So it's important that you contact your financial sponsor in advance to make sure that this letter can be prepared for you in time for your visa application, because especially if they're sponsoring lots of students, it may take them quite a while to get a letter to you. The letter from your sponsor must be an original, so it's not good enough if it's emailed or scanned to you. It must be an original letter. And if your financial sponsor is only paying part of your tuition fees or living expenses, then you must also show your bank statement, like we just discussed for self-funding students. So if your sponsor is paying, for example, living expenses but not tuition fees, then you'd need to show enough money for tuition fees in your bank account for 28 days. And the bank statements must meet all of the requirements that was on the slide. And here's an example of a financial sponsorship letter that meets all of the requirements. Name of the financial sponsor, date, your name, the length of the sponsorship, and the amount of money that the sponsor is giving to you for your studies, and also the contact details there at the bottom of the financial sponsor. There is something that you need to know about called ATAS, the Academic Technology Approval Scheme. Not all students will need this ATAS certificate, but some of you will do. Now, ATAS applies to certain courses in the UK. It's basically a security check that you have to go through as part of your visa application if you're studying a certain course. So students apply to ATAS for approval from the UK government before they begin their studies. ATAS applies to a selection of undergraduate and postgraduate courses. It's mainly postgraduate courses, but there are more and more undergraduate courses being added to the ATAS list, but it is generally mainly postgraduate students who need to apply to this. And ATAS is an online application, and it's applied to through the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, the FCO, and you do that through their website. There's information on our website, the International Support Team, that will take you straight through to that ATAS application. And it will be stated on your CAS statement whether or not you need to apply to ATAS. So many students, when applying for a visa, want to know which documents do I need to include with my visa application. So depending on the country where you live, you may need to make your application online or using an application form, VAF9 and Appendix 8. Most of the applications are online now. You'll need your passport in addition to your application form, and you'll also need your printed CAS statement. Original bank statements, as we've discussed, if you're self-funded or if you're part-sponsored. And if you're sponsored, then you'll need your financial sponsor letter. All students applying for this visa will need 2 passport photographs, which I'll tell you a bit more about soon. And you must have your original certificates of all of the qualifications listed on the CAS statement. So all students will need those documents. In addition to that, you may possibly need an ATAS certificate. So if it applies to you, if your course is one of the ATAS courses. And you may need your letter from your parents if you're using their bank statements and birth certificate. And if any of the documents that I've mentioned that you need to use as part of your visa application, if any of them are not in English, then it's your responsibility to provide translations of those documents. And there's more information on the International Support Team website about the requirements for translations. You may also need an IOM medical certificate for tuberculosis, which I'll tell you more about in a minute. So photographs, a lot of students just use 2 passport photographs and assume that they'll be okay, but there are actually quite strict requirements about the photographs. They must meet the requirements set out by the UKVI. They must be the right size, they must have been taken recently within 1 month of the application date, and they must not be damaged. So please, please, if you've already got some passport photographs and think, I've got these already, I'll use them, please don't be tempted to use old passport photographs. It's a very small thing that can make a very big difference if you use old ones and if the Home Office realise that they're not recent photographs. The most common way they do realise this is sometimes students use the same photographs that they used to apply for their passport. So then it's obviously shown to the Home Office that the passport photographs are older than 1 month. So please, please, please get new ones. And you must also write your name on the back of each photograph. And this is the photograph guidance in more detail. I'm certainly not expecting you to read through all of this now, but just basically to show you what it looks like. It's a 2-page document. It's available on the UK, the Home Office website, and it's linked through from the International Support Team website. You must make time to read through all of this before you make your visa application. You'll see there on the left-hand side, it shows the exact requirements that the photograph, the box, the size of your head on the photograph needs to be a certain size. So basically it makes a difference how close or far away you are from the camera. And the actual photograph itself must be 45 by 35 millimeters. And you'll see below that box, it gives some examples of good photographs and what is acceptable. And on the right-hand page, it gives some examples of what is not acceptable. There's a category of what the Home Office refer to as low-risk students. So basically, certain nationalities the Home Office have deemed to be low risk. So this is certainly not something set by the university. The UK government have given the following list of nationalities, and basically if you're from one of these nations then you don't need to give as much evidence, which I'll come on to in a second. So Argentina, Australia, Barbados, Botswana, Brunei, Canada, Chile, etc, etc. I'll let you read through the whole list there. So we do have quite a few students who fit into this list. So if you are one of those students, then you are not required to submit the maintenance or qualification documents. So there's a lot less documentary evidence that you need to submit with your visa application if you're from one of these low-risk countries. However, the embassy does reserve the right to request them if they want to see them. So it's a very, very good idea to keep the amount of money that you need in your bank account for the 28 days, just in case the embassy does request them. So you're not kind of getting out of the requirement to make sure you have the correct amount of money. You just don't need to submit all the documents as a standard part of the application. So it makes it a little bit easier for you. How to apply. Applications may be in paper form or online. As I said earlier, most of you, I think, will be doing it online. You apply in your home country, your country of residence, at the nearest British Embassy or High Commission or Consulate, or the local visa application centre. You visit this website, select your country, and then follow the instructions. And I did actually mean to change this next point before this presentation to say biometric information will need to be given. And I'll explain very soon why that is necessary. So biometric information, what I mean by that is basically they will take a photograph of you and also take your fingerprints. And then they will retain that information as part of your visa process. And it will be included in a special biometric information document that we'll discuss in a minute. How to apply. So the price of applying outside the UK is £322. You can apply up to 3 months before your course start date, and you must apply within 6 months of your CAS being issued. Otherwise, the information on your CAS becomes too old. You need to check the visa application processing times by visiting this website here. So that will give you an idea of how soon before your course starts that you need to apply. And they actually break that down to your country, so they give you quite useful information about how long your application will take. There is something new that you may or may not have heard of already, called the NHS surcharge. So NHS is the National Health Service, the UK's health service. So recently the Home Office, from April, the Home Office have introduced this new charge for people applying for visas to the UK. So all applicants applying for a student visa will be charged a specific fee to access the NHS during your stay in the UK. And that fee is £150 per year. And any part of that year up to 6 months will also be charged at £75. So basically you add that up depending on how long you're going to be in the UK for. And there is actually an online calculator to help you figure out how much you'll be charged for the NHS surcharge. All applicants must pay whether they have private insurance or not. So if you do have private medical travel insurance, it doesn't make any difference. This is an essential, compulsory part of the visa application. And it doesn't make any difference whether you do actually access the NHS or not. Like I say, it is compulsory. And anyway, it's a very good thing that you do have access to the NHS during your time in the UK. The surcharge is paid online at the time you make your visa application. And if the application is refused, then the surcharge is refunded to you. However, if you suspend or withdraw from your studies or leave the UK earlier than expected, then unfortunately the NHS surcharge cannot be refunded. If you have any questions about this, any further questions, then please do ask at the end and we'll be happy to answer them. So the UKVI now also interview a number of students as part of their visa application. And you won't know in advance if you're one of those students. They are chosen at random. And the purpose of the interview is to assess your English, to make sure that you've got a good level of English language, and to also check your understanding of the course that you're intending to study. But they're not going to ask you questions in huge detail. They just generally want to see that you know what course you're coming here to study and your reasons for studying it. The questions will focus on your course, where you want to study, and your reasons for studying in the UK. So it's a good idea as part of your preparation to think about these questions and to think about how you'd answer them if you're requested to do an interview. If you are required to attend an interview, if you're one of the chosen random students, then you'll receive this request by email. So it's very important that when you make a visa application that you regularly, so daily, check your inbox and your junk mail, just in case you do receive an email inviting you to interview. The interviews take place at the embassy or the visa application centre. And if you don't attend the interview when you're requested to, then your application will automatically be refused. So very, very important to regularly check your email account. Students from certain countries, as part of the visa application, are also required to provide a medical certificate confirming that they are clear of tuberculosis, often abbreviated as TB. So you should check the UKVI's website for up-to-date information on the countries that require a medical certificate as part of this entry clearance visa application. There's the website there for you to check the up-to-date list. But we do have a list here. So I'll give you a few seconds there to have a quick look through. It's in alphabetical order, so you should be able to find your country quite quickly to see whether or not you need a TB screening certificate as part of your visa application. And here's the other page. If you do need to be screened, then you need to contact the International Organisation for Migration to arrange a chest X-ray at an accredited clinic or hospital, and you will be charged a fee for this. If the screening shows that you do not have TB, then you'll be given a certificate to submit with your visa application. And the certificate is valid for a period of 6 months. So make sure you don't do that too far in advance before you're due to make your visa application. So if your visa is successful, you may be wondering how long a visa you'll be given. If you're studying a degree course of 12 months or more, you should be given a visa which begins up to a month before the course start date. So it gives you plenty of time to settle in the UK before starting your course. And the visa should end 4 months after your course end date. So that should give you enough time to attend your graduation and to basically book a flight and pack up your belongings. So you're not expected to leave the UK very, very soon after your course finishes. Now, this is a standard amount of time you should be given on your visa. So it's your responsibility when you're given the visa to check that they've given you the correct amount of time. And if they don't give you the correct amount of time, you must question it straight away. Because if you do that, it can quite easily be rectified. But if you leave it, then it's not so easy to sort out. However, some students may not check it or may not notice until they get to the UK. If that happens to you, then you need to contact the international support team as soon as you arrive in the UK, and we can assist you in having it corrected if a mistake has been made. If you leave it right until the end of your visa, it can cause big problems for you. So make sure you check the length of time that's given to you and take action to have it corrected as soon as possible if it's not correct. All Tier 4 student visas are now issued as biometric residence permits. So that's basically a little blue and pink card that's got the biometric information on that I talked about earlier, so your photograph and your fingerprint. That information is stored in a microchip in the card. And this is instead of the old style vignette, basically the sticker visa that students used to get in their passport. So it's now a card rather than a sticker. What will happen when your application is granted is you'll be issued with the vignette, which is the old style sticker in your passport, but that's only valid for 30 days. So once you've entered the UK, you need to collect your proper visa, the card, the BRP card. You need to collect that from a post office in Liverpool, and further details will be given to you leading up to your arrival in the UK about the process for collecting that card. But I basically wanted to tell you today that the vignette, the sticker that you'll be given as part of a successful visa application is not your actual visa that you'll keep throughout your course. You do need to have that replaced by a BRP once you enter the UK. And you need to take your passport and your decision letter, so the letter telling you that your visa has been granted. You need to take both of those documents to collect the BRP card. And you must collect the BRP within 10 days of your arrival in the UK. And as I said there, we'll provide more information about this online and during the Welcome Week events when you arrive. It's useful for you to know that there is a limit on the amount of study you can do in the UK on a student visa. There's a 5-year limit on degree level study, a 6-year limit if you're doing a 4-year degree followed by a master's, or an 8-year limit if you're applying to do a further course after a PhD. Only study on a student visa or a Tier 4 visa is included in these limits, and there are some course exceptions. So if you think any of that may apply to you and may limit already the time you can spend in the UK, then do ask us a question or send us an email. Some of you may have family members who wish to join you in the UK during your studies. A family member defined by the Home Office is a spouse, so husband or wife, a civil partner, an unmarried partner, there are extra rules to that, or a child under the age of 18. Family members can join you if you're studying a postgraduate course lasting 12 months or more, or if you're a government-sponsored student following a course which lasts longer than 6 months. And each dependent must have a certain amount of maintenance, as you do as a student, for their living cost, and that amount is £4,140 per dependent. And they apply in the same way that you do, the same method. They also have to pay an application fee for the visa, again £322. So if you do have a question, You can ask us here as part of this live webinar, and my colleagues Bev and Chris will be happy to help you. We have lots of information, some of it I've referred to throughout the webinar, which is on our website. And that, as you can see, there's www.liv.ac.uk/student support/IST. And our email, we get lots of emails every day from current and prospective students, and we usually answer them on the same day or not long afterwards. And our email address there is ist@liv.ac.uk. So if you need to rush off now and haven't got time to chat, then you can send us an email. So I hope you found that webinar very useful today. Please hang around and ask some questions. My colleagues will be here for the next half hour or so, I think, until we've all finished. So generally I hope you found that really useful, and I hope you feel a lot more confident now about the visa process. If you do listen to and follow all of the advice that we've given you today, there's no reason why you shouldn't have a very straightforward, successful visa application. And to end, just to say, looking forward to seeing you all here in September. Thank you for listening.